Hello, everyone. I hope that you are having a good day. I'm sorry that I cannot be in school today or the rest of this week. What I'd like to do is give you your lesson for today so that we do not fall behind in science. Even though this says block 5, this applies to all B day classes today. So the first thing you're going to do is take a look at your lesson for today. You're going to click on today's in-class folder, and it says click here first for directions. Read this first for directions. This is the video that you should have opened up that you're listening to now. First things first, your journals are still due on Friday. The substitute will collect the journals, and I will get them and grade them. They will count as your final product grade for the second trimester. If we go back to the main Schoology page, remember that the model journal is available to help you get your journal ready, and the rubric that will be used to grade your journal is also here in case you lose your rubric that you are given. When you finish this YouTube video lesson, you will then go back to today's in-class folder and complete this CAMI assignment, Phase Change Graph Review. It's your last process grade for the marking period or for the trimester, and it's worth 28 points. When you submit that, you will then finish the conclusion questions to the heating substances lab report that's in your journal. In this lab report, if this is your journal, you need to go to the end of the lab report, which would be after the graph that you completed, the line graph. There are 7 conclusion questions that you glued into your journal that you have not answered yet. Today, in your science class, you will answer these silently and individually. In your journal, you'll handwrite your answers. Again, I will grade these answers when I collect your journals on Friday, February the 11th. So one more time, today you will watch this video lesson. When that is finished, you will then go to this CAMI assignment, complete and submit it. You will then open up your journal, turn to the heating substances lab report, go to letter F or part F of your lab report and answer the 7 conclusion questions. If we look at our in-class folder, this is the Phase Change Graph Review assignment. What I'm going to do now is explain and introduce our new project for the month of February, Black History Month. Okay, so hopefully you completed your homework, which was to look over this Google slide to get kind of an introduction and a feel for what this project is all about. Every year with my students in the month of February, we always complete the African American Scientist Project. This is to honor all of the work, inventions, discoveries, research of any African American scientist, present day or in the past. So when we say scientist, it does not have to be just a scientist or just an inventor. You can choose a Black scientist, computer technologist, engineer, mathematician, or inventor. So your person can be any African American in any of the fields that you see on the screen here. So in the field of science, African Americans have faced many challenges, and because of those challenges, they have often not been able to get the recognition they deserve for the work and accomplishments that they have contributed either in the fields of science, technology, engineering, or math. So this is your time to present to your classmates the awesomeness of your scientist because you're the expert. You will be the only person in the room that is presenting on your scientist. So you're basically teaching us all of the accomplishments of your scientist. You'll be doing 3 particular things for this project. This project consists of 3 parts or 3 components. You will design a U.S. postage stamp to honor your scientist. You will write a 5-paragraph essay about your scientist, and you will present your scientist to the class. Each part of this project has different due dates, so don't get overwhelmed because you have to do 3 different things. Each piece is due at different times. So we will chunk this assignment and we will work on it throughout the month of February, and it will actually be presented in March. So the first, oh, and by the way, each part of the project gets its own separate grade. They all will count towards the 3rd trimester because the due dates all happen in the 3rd trimester. They're all worth product assignments, and then the point value you can see is highlighted here. So the first thing I want to talk about is the stamp. So snail mail is something you guys are not very common or familiar with, but the U.S. Postal Service, their job is to send letters throughout the world and the country, and it's not free. You have to pay for a letter to be mailed. I don't even know how much it is now. I think it's like 79 cents to mail a letter. And that is what the postage stamp on the top right corner of the envelope represents. It means that you paid to have that letter delivered. So ever since the U.S. Postal Service has existed, they design postage stamps to honor famous Americans or famous people that have contributed to society. So what you will do is you will design a postage stamp in honor of your scientist. There are 3 requirements to the stamp. You have to have some kind of visual on your stamp. You need to show or post the person's full name, and you need to write a dedication sentence to honor your scientist. Now, the visual does not have to be a picture or portrait of the person's face. It can, but it is not required. The picture or the visual can be a collage of the different things that your inventor may have invented. Or if your person is a scientist, the picture can be a collage of different things that your scientist discovered. It could be tools that are used in their field of science. So be as creative as you want. You can hand draw your visual, or you can find images, print them out, cut them out, and glue them on to your stamp. You have many options here. You can use stickers, you can use glitter. So you have the opportunity to be artistic and creative for this portion of the project. You can make your stamp out of cardstock, construction paper, poster board, presentation board. You can make it as big as poster board, or you can make it as small as a regular piece of paper. The one thing you cannot do is just hand draw something without color on a regular piece of paper. You have to jazz it up a little bit, right? You're going to use construction paper. You're going to incorporate color. You have images that you're going to glue onto your stamp. So don't forget that you have the visual. You have to post the person's name in any kind of creative font that you want. Just make sure that the spelling is correct, that it's neat and clear, easy to see, and that you have a dedication sentence. This is just one sentence where you are basically summarizing a major accomplishment of this particular inventor or scientist or mathematician or engineer. So in the past, I have done this with students, and I have saved some of the stamps that they've made, and I'd like for you to take a look at some examples. So if you click on this link, you can see that some students cut out a scalloped edge to make it look like a stamp, and then other students use a straight edge. Either one is fine. You can see that the name of the scientist is clearly posted. This particular student used stickers. The visual is of the person. She was a dancer. She was also a medical doctor. She worked for the Peace Corps. Star Trek was her favorite show, and she was an astronaut who worked for NASA. And this is the dedication sentence. It's actually a quote that Mae Jemison herself stated. So the student used that as the dedication sentence. Because this is not your personal words, you need to put it in quotations and cite it. However, you do not have to find a quote to put on as your dedication statement to the stamp. You can go ahead and make up your own dedication sentence or statement. This student used poster board. You can see that they printed images from the computer that are not in color, but they incorporated color in the stamp by using construction paper. So we have the visual, we have the name of the scientist, and we have a dedication sentence. This is actually written by someone else, so the student quoted it or cited it and cited the person who said it. This student used markers, construction paper. You can see the dedication sentence. You can see the name of the scientist. And this particular dedication sentence the student made up on their own, so it's not in quotation marks and it does not need to be cited. Here's another that was done mostly on computer, and then it was glued onto construction paper. As you can see, this is something that's tangible that you can hold in your hands and eventually will be hung out in the hallways for display. Here is one where the students used presentation board, a shorter version of that, and you can see that they use construction paper to cut out grass design. They also use construction paper to make like a mosaic design in the background. They printed some pictures and glued them on, and then they have the scientist's name, and then there are 2 dedication statements. So you can look through this. The student used 3D stickers, but these are just all examples of stamps, U.S. postage stamps that were created and designed by 8th grade students in the past that you can use for inspiration. The stamp is worth 20 points, and this is the rubric that will be used when your stamp is graded. So that's the first part of the project. The second part of the project is to write a 5-paragraph essay on your scientist. This is going to be 36 points, and it also is a product grade. It will be due after the stamp has been completed. So if you choose to work by yourself, that is fine. You would write your own 5-paragraph essay. If you choose to work in a team, then you would write the essay together. You all would participate equally. You would all write it on a shared Google Doc so we can clearly see who is contributing to the essay. And you would submit that link to your shared Google Doc on the due date. So every person would submit on Schoology your team's 5-paragraph essay, and it would just be that you each submit the same link. It should be typed. You cannot plagiarize. You cannot use words from an article. You have to rewrite it in your own words. If you do copy text directly, you must cite it. Of course, it's a writing piece. It's an essay, so spelling, grammar, punctuation, neatness counts. It's going to be a 3-point thesis. So you're learning about 3-point theses right now in ELA. You're working on a research project right now in ELA. So a 3-point thesis means you would have your opening paragraph, you would have 3 body paragraphs. Each paragraph talks about one of the 3 points in your thesis, and then you have a conclusion paragraph to wrap it all up. I'm not going to go in too much detail because as we work on the essay, I'll give you more guidance. But just like in ELA, you're going to have a hook to grab the attention of your reader in the first paragraph. You're going to have general biographical information about your scientist. So something like their full name, their birth date, their death date, what field of science they worked in, or if they were an inventor or a chemist, things like that. Any awards, monuments, any kind of recognition that the scientist received, you would also list. You're not going into detail here. It's just general biographical information. And then finally, your thesis statement. So that's the first paragraph. The next 2 paragraphs are about your scientist. Specifically, what did your scientist do or invent or teach or discover or research? You're not just listing what they did, you're describing and explaining their work. So you're giving the background story. What inspired them to do the work? What's the significance of their work? If it's an invention, how is it designed? How did their invention or how did their research impact the world? You would do this in both paragraphs 2 and 3. Okay? Paragraph 4, everyone will have the same topic in paragraph 4, which is to talk about the challenges and the difficulties that your particular person faced simply because they are or were a person of color. I will go into more detail and model examples to you when I get back next week. I will actually teach you about an African American scientist by the name of Dr. Vivian Thomas. I will give you his personal story. I will share his personal hardships, difficulties, and challenges that he faced in his lifetime simply because he was a Black man living during Jim Crow laws. And you can use his story to give you guidance for your 4th paragraph of your essay. And then finally, the conclusion paragraph, you would just simply restate your thesis, recap the main points of your essay, and make one powerful statement to leave a lasting impression with your reader. You do need to have citations. You need a total of 2 in MLA format. I know in ELA right now, your teachers are teaching you how to research and how to find reliable sources. And they said that .com is not a very reliable resource. You want to focus on URL addresses that have this ending, or you can use UD Live Search. However, there are quite a lot of Black history websites that are good, reliable resources that have an address ending in .com, and I will allow you to use those sites as a resource. So just a reminder, when you write your essay, you should write it in 3rd person, but I will allow you to use 1st person in the last paragraph because that's where you talk about how that person affected you, like why you picked that person and why that person interested you. It should be double spaced. Your citations should be in MLA format. And I will give you at least 1 science class to work with your partners to work on your essay during the school day. So we're not going to go into too much detail here, but I will be giving you a graphic organizer for your pre-writing. I'm going to guide you through it. We're going to chunk it. We're going to do it step by step. I'm going to let you build on your essay. You're not going to go just right into writing your 5-paragraph essay. So first you're going to do pre-writing, and then I'm going to give you a very specific guide to help you through your rough draft. And then from there, you can make your final essay. And then this is the rubric that will be used to grade your essay. So these are all links that I want you to look at on your own to learn more about this project, specifically the essay. And then each team will present their scientist at the very end of this project. And again, this will happen in early March. So you're using the next whole month to work on this project, to make your stamp, to write your essay, and to organize and prepare your presentation. So this is what you call an interactive presentation for your audience, because it's not something where you have a professor standing in front of the room just giving you a lecture, talking at you. You're going to have a Google slide presentation. In other words, you're going to have visuals that your audience can look at. You're going to have something called Scientist in a Bag. I'll explain that when I model the presentation of Dr. Vivian Thomas. I'll show you what I mean by Scientist in a Bag. And you're also going to share your stamp with your audience. So how long is your presentation? Well, that depends. If you're doing this entire project individually on your own, then your individual presentation will be between 3 to 3.5 minutes. But if you are working in a team to do your stamp, essay, and presentation, you will all present equally as a team, and your time limit is between 5 and 5.5 minutes. Again, I'll explain Scientists in a Bag later on in the month when we get closer to it. This is a visual just reminding you what pieces you need to prepare for your presentation. Again, if you look at this right now, it's very overwhelming because you have not made your stamp, you have not written your essay, you have not learned anything about your scientist. I'll explain this in more detail when we get closer to preparing for the presentations. Most students ask, how long does the Google Slide presentation have to be? I would say just make sure it does not go over 10 slides. There is no particular order for the slides. And you do not need to include citations on your on your presentation. That is because all of your citations were already in your essay. The only reason why you would need a citation in your Google slide is if you use images from online that have a copyright. If they are free to use, then you do not need to have any citations. I will teach you how to tell if somebody owns those images online or if those images are free for anyone to use. Are you allowed to use note cards? Yes. People get nervous when they're up there talking in front of their classmates. Sometimes they may forget their train of thought. They may forget the word that they want to use in their presentation. So you can use a note card or note cards as kind of like your cheat sheet. If you forget a word, you can look down. If you lose your place, you can look down at your note cards. However, you do not want to be reading from your note cards the whole entire time because you are graded on voice projection. You're graded on eye contact. So if you're reading from a script the whole time, number one, it's boring for the audience. But number two, you would lose points on eye contact. The other thing is if you are not working independently and you are working on a team, you have to make sure that each person presents an equal amount of time. So, how do we determine what teams present first? There's an app that allows you to pick numbers out of a hat to determine what teams will present first, second, third, and so forth. I will give you one class to organize and prepare your presentations. A reminder not to crowd your slides because simple sentences are better. It's easier for your audience to read the slides. I already talked about this, but everyone on the team will submit the same Google slide presentation. That's not considered cheating because you guys developed it together. You're all co-authors, so you all can submit under your own name on Schoology when the presentations are due. This is the rubric that I will use to grade your presentation, so you can look through that when we get closer to the presentation day. And I just want you to know that starting next class, I will be giving you class time. Not every single science class in the month of February is devoted to this project. We are still going to do our heat labs. We're still going to have heat discussions. And then a day here and there, we will work on the project. So on Friday of this week, that whole day, you will be working either independently or with your team. You will be researching online, finding articles about your scientist, copying the URL address, and reading through the articles to learn about your scientist. So that is what Friday is all about. The whole day is about researching and learning about your scientist. I will give you a day to work with your team on your essay, a day to work on your presentation. I will personally help you with the 4th paragraph of your essay where it talks about the challenges and difficulties that your scientist faced. And I will give you a sample presentation, Google slide presentation. So what I'll do is, like I said, I'm going to teach you about an African-American medical doctor by the name of Dr. Vivian Thomas. I will share with you his challenges and difficulties, and then I will model a Google slide presentation of his story to you. All right, so teams, this is the part you care about. Teams can be 1 person, 2 people, or 3 people only. You are not allowed to have teams of 4 or larger. There are no special circumstances for that. It's teams of 1, 2, or 3 people. Do you have to work in a team? No. You may choose to work on your own. This is something where you know, do I work well with other people? Am I a good team player? Or do I prefer to work on my own? There is no right answer. You do what is a best fit for you. However, you need to choose your partners wisely. There will be no trading or changing of teams. I will not listen to any complaints 3 or 4 weeks into the project where you say, my partner is not doing anything. My partner is not returning my phone calls. My partner is not answering my emails. If your parents reach out and say, my son or daughter is having a hard time with the project because their partner's not cooperating, you chose your partner. You work through the issue. So choose your partners wisely. Remember that you will only have 1 class period to research as a team, 1 class period to work on your essay, and 1 class period to work on your presentation. The rest of it needs to happen on your own after school hours. So that means whoever you pick as a partner, you must exchange contact information, and you need to respond to your teammates if they call you, text you, or email you. If you prefer not to meet outside of school because of COVID, you can always Zoom. So, how do you pick your scientist? So here's the deal, guys. If I present on Dr. Vivian Thomas, nobody else in the class can present on the same scientist. So once a scientist has been chosen and picked by one team, nobody else can claim that scientist. It is based on first come, first served. So there is a Google form that will appear next class. You will not have access to it until February the 11th. When you open the Google form, it's going to say, who are you? Who are your partners? And then it will have a list of all of the possible African American scientists that you can choose from. And you click on the scientist that you want. As soon as you click on that scientist's name, that name will disappear from all other Google forms for everyone else in the class. So that is ensuring, the Google form ensures that only one team is working on one scientist. So once a scientist has been chosen by one team, no other team can present on that same scientist. And again, that's going to happen on a Google form, and you will not see that Google form until Friday in science class. So you are B-Day students. So let me show you just an overall calendar. So again, this project, even though there's 3 things you got to do for this project, we will chunk it, we will baby step our way through it, and it will be due at different times. Different portions of the project will be due at different times. So the first thing is you guys will pick your scientist, pick your teammates, and complete the Google form where you say, this is who I am. I'm either working on my own or I'm working on a team. Here are my teammates, and this is the scientist we chose. All of that will happen on Friday, and on that same day on Friday, the rest of the class is yours to work on your own to research your scientist and collect articles on your scientist and to learn about your scientist. By February 17th of next week, you must have all research done. And then the following week, your stamps are due. So you can see that you have almost 2 weeks to get your stamps done. You only need to turn in 1 stamp per team. March 3rd, your rough draft is due, because I will read every single team's rough draft and give you feedback so that you can use that feedback to improve on your essay, and then your final essay will be due March the 7th, 4 days later. And then presentations start on the 15th. So you can see that once the stamp is done, you can focus on the essay. Once the essay is done, you can focus on the presentation. So the moment you've been waiting for, who are the scientists that you can pick from? So you can click this list, and I chunked it. So I listed engineers, electricity, inventors, agriculture, biology and animals, medicine, space, chemistry, computers, gaming, agriculture again. Did I make a mistake there? Nope, I listed it twice. Sorry about that. Physics, and a particular piece of physics. So, for example, Ronald McNair has something to do with either working for NASA or space science. Ronald McNair is only one scientist. Your whole entire stamp, essay, and presentation would be on Ronald McNair. The reason why it's Ronald McNair by himself is because there's plenty of information available online and in libraries about Ronald McNair for you to learn about his life story in detail and his work as a scientist in detail. There will be no issues or problems with you creating a 5-paragraph essay on Ronald McNair. However, if you choose to do your project on Mary Eliza Mahoney, she was a nurse. She is the first African American female nurse in America. There's not much information on her because she worked in the early to mid 1800s, so there's not much information. So it's a little bit difficult for a team to develop a very meaty, content-specific 5-paragraph essay on just her. So I chunked her with another African-American female in the field of medicine around her time. This is actually the first African-American female doctor. So the two of them have like a common theme. And you'll present both of them, because then you'll have enough content to write a 5-paragraph essay. So your stamp does not have to be 2 separate stamps. It can be one stamp with both scientists on the same stamp. Okay? So you can choose to do a project on 2 scientists or just 1 scientist. That's up to you. So again, you have to take some time. This is your homework for tonight. You need to take some time to just kind of look through the lists of names and see what names seem to interest you, and maybe you can just Google them and then come with those names next class on Friday, and you can sit down with your partners and say, well, these people interest me. And then you decide as a group, you could just say, okay, majority rules, let's pick a scientist, and then you can fill out the Google form. Let's say you wanted to do Lewis Latimer, but then you don't see Lewis Latimer on the list. That means another team already picked him. So you have to have a handful of names that you would be interested in doing the project on, because if your first scientist has already been snatched up by another team, you've got 2 or 3 other scientists' names to fall back on as backup. Okay? So when we go back to today's folder, you can see that your homework tonight is to get your journal ready for next class. You've had over a week to get that done. It will be collected even though I'm absent on Friday. The substitute will collect it and I will grade it over the weekend. And I want you tonight for homework to start thinking about who you want as your partners. Contact them. See if they want to be your partner. Come up with maybe about 5 scientists that you'd like to learn more about, and come with those names next class. And then next class you will research, you will pick your scientist and research your scientist. So I want to remind all of you, this was your whole lesson for today, directions for the lab. No, I'm sorry, not directions for the lab, directions for the project. But remember, your class is not over yet. All right, you still have half of the class remaining. For the remainder of the class, you should complete this assignment silently and individually. Then you need to open up your journal and answer the 7 conclusion questions to the heating substances lab, which is part F. Okay, don't forget to submit this assignment. I hope you have a good rest of the week, and I'll see you all on Monday or Tuesday, whenever it's a B day. Thank you, everyone.